Now, this is a little exploration into virtual machine consoles and some additions that we want to make. So here's a little virtual machine running Alpine Linux, and we are on the serial console here. And the first thing I would like to point out is that it's possible to have more than one serial console, and Cockpit traditionally supports that. So can be any number of entries here in this drop-down menu for serial console. So if you want to change how we select the console, we have to take that into account, that there can be more than one serial console. Okay, we have two. This one doesn't do anything. And this one is the regular login thing. And then there's also the VNC console for graphical stuff. But you also get a text login, of course, there, except this virtual machine does not have VNC support in its configuration. That's probably quite unusual, and you always get it when you create virtual machines, and I don't know how you would end up in this situation, but it's possible. And now we have the advice here that you can edit, but you have to shut down the machine first. So these kinds of configuration changes can only be done when the virtual machine is off. And of course, we could let people now change the definition of the virtual machine while it is running, and then tell them they have to shut it off to get these changes take effect. But maybe it's easier in this way, in this case, just to tell them to shut it off and don't even let them get into that situation. It's also easier to implement, of course. So shut it off, and then this is the console when the machine is off. It tells you have to switch it on to actually do something here, of course. And it also says that VNC is not supported. Now there's a new button here, Add Support. That's from our contributor, the dialog. And we can just click Add. And then this changes into some weird emoji kind of thing. Sorry, this is of course an empty address and the -1 as the port, so we can improve how this is displayed. But now there is VNC, and we can run the machine, and we get this console, and we can see what's happening there. What is new here now is that there's a footer underneath this, which tells you that the actual address and port that has been chosen at runtime. And now you could go and connect some other remote viewer to it. And Cockpit even offers this button here to download a little file in the browser. And I can click this now. And here's the file. Yeah, you can see it in the screencast. But it will not do the right thing in my case because the network is not set up correctly. It will connect to localhost on this port, but of course the browser is running somewhere else, and localhost for the browser is something completely different than localhost for the dev MVO LAN machine that we are managing here. So that will not work. And we might want to edit this, but it's the same as adding VNC support. So first we have to shut it down. And now we can edit here, and we could give it a more open listening address. So this is not actually any kind of address that the VNC connects to, but this is of course the address that the server is listening on. So 000 is a nice address, and that will open it up. We save it, and then we can run the machine. And now, of course, this one tells us 000. Maybe that's not so useful. Maybe we could have the local IP address of this machine that Cockpit is connected to, or even the host name show up here. The port is interesting. Now launching the viewer is again a little bit weird. It will just connect to 000 now. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's the same as localhost, I guess, so it still doesn't work. But of course, you can just ignore this button and run your normal remote viewer and input the working IP address for this machine. After you have opened the firewall, of course. That is also something that is necessary to make this all work. So this button is a bit misleading. It only works in the simple, trivial case when Cockpit is looking at the localhost. So maybe we should only show this button in the localhost case. But then again, it might work if you do the preparation also in other situations. So I don't know, but that's old stuff. Maybe we don't need to improve this here. So, and then the next change in the UI is, since we now have the launch viewer here, there's no desktop viewer entry here anymore. That's not necessary anymore because we have the button here. So I quickly show one other change that I've made when the machine is shut down. And you can do all this editing here. The expand button is still here. That didn't used to be shown, but I think it makes sense to keep it consistent. You can still expand this here. You have the same content. And I think it makes sense because here's a run button. So you can run it here. And of course also shut it down from here. So I don't see any reason why we should not let people expand the console card even when the machine is shut off. Okay. So that's about VNC. There's also Spice. Here's another machine. This one has VNC configured already. We can edit it here. It even has a password that just works fine. If you use a remote viewer, of course, you have to type that password in. And to verify, maybe we put this icon thingy here where you can reveal the password. I think that should be done. But anyway, this is here. And then it also has Spice. And in certain environments, Spice is not supported. And we have this entry here for a long time that lets you replace these Spice devices with something else, and also a big warning if the host actually does not support it. But why not put it here? So this will give you the same dialog as from the menu. But let's run this machine. This one isn't really a real machine. It doesn't have any boot medium, so this will not boot, but we get a console anyway. And now we are here on the VNC console. It also has two serial consoles, and it has the Spice console. And this is now, there's no built-in support in Cockpit for running a direct viewer here. So the only thing you can do is launch a viewer and replace it with VNC, maybe. And this button here has the same problems as the other launch button, but we had this traditionally, so why not keep it? And this used to be a much bigger text here where you could read how to install the Word viewer, and it would give you all kinds of connection options. But now I've reduced this to be only specific to Spice, because everything else that is specific to VNC should be handled here in this view. Okay, so I think maybe we want to remove this button here and only offer it when it's switched off. I don't know. Anyway, so there's a mock-up that replaces this drop-down with toggle buttons here. I think we can do that, but then, as I mentioned, we have to figure out a way to handle multiple serial consoles. And I think we can, for if there's more than one, we can put this drop-down back here. And it already has the disconnect button here that we have to find a place for. So this row is available for drop-down in that case, I think. Okay. Yeah, that was me learning about more details of the consoles, and that our launch viewer button is a bit weird. And well, let's see how we continue from here. Thanks a lot.